Welcome to Battle Ready. My name is Aaron McManus, and I'm here with my dad, Erwin McManus.
Well, it's clear that it's been a while because you didn't say that this is the Battle Ready podcast.
This is the Battle Ready podcast.
And you've lost your touch in just a few days.
In just a few days. Well, we just got back from New York City, and so we were gonna bring the team to New York and do a podcast there, but we were quite busy, so we weren't able to bring them out. So we're back in LA. We just got here. We're filming one right now. This is Friday. This is going quick, and we're gonna do it right now.
Right. So to all of our loyal Battle Ready podcast followers, we're here for you, and
we're here.
For those of you who are complaining, thank you for complaining.
Yes.
So I rushed over here.
Yes.
And we're going to do a couple of
shorter episodes,
kind of like shots. There's going to be these short shots of
espresso
podcast.
I need it. That's inappropriate language because you don't drink at all. So.
Well, I was going to say Red Bull, but I didn't want to be a sponsor.
They don't sponsor
us. So.
And we're I've been really thinking about this because Red Bull is, they're a big sponsor in F1, Formula One, and I love Formula One. It's become kind of my thing that I've gotten into in the last year and a half during COVID. I don't know what team I am anymore. Because I'm always I'm not a guy who's super loyal to a certain team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a guy who gets super loyal to a certain player.
So you're loyal to Lewis Hamilton?
Yes. I love Lewis Hamilton, and I love Toto Wolff, the team principal of
But
Mosaic.
if they part ways, what are you going to do?
I'd probably go with Lewis Hamilton, but then I love McLaren, and I didn't love McLaren before, and I love McLaren now.
But is it the driver? Is it the organization, or is it the culture that's actually the most important for success?
Well, this is interesting because I rewatched the series Drive to Survive last week because, not like I have much time, but at night, we're working on our computers and just kind of throw it on. And Toto says this thing, we never blame the person, we blame the problem. And he goes, it becomes really frustrating though when you know who did something wrong, or if you're the person. He goes, because it's our culture, we never blame the person, we blame the problem. We always try to find the problem in the situation and then address that.
I love that. Isn't it easier though to blame the person?
So much easier. I just always.
So I would like for us to apply that to our culture more and more every day.
Every day.
Because I'm a person that definitely blames. I blame the problem.
Yeah.
And others that will go nameless sometimes blame the people more than the problem.
Me? You said me? Well, oftentimes I am the problem, so it's about identifying and owning that I am the problem and I've got to adjust. But I do think it's important to identify the person and the problem, and then helping that person be well equipped. Because from a leadership perspective, you kind of do need to know what went wrong and who kind of was closely affiliated with the situation.
Right.
So you can either help them have a conversation and equip them in a better way, or maybe they're just undermanned and you need to help build their team out or X, Y, Z. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think taking responsibility is one of the most powerful attributes of an effective leader. And so the more you're able to take responsibility when you see a problem and identify how you can make it better, the stronger your organization is going to be.
But there's an in-between. Do you feel like there's a healthy medium in that? Because, I've worked with leaders who take all of the blame, but then nothing gets better. Because it can't truly always be just one person's fault.
It's not about the blame. It really is about the responsibility because, look.
What do you mean? Give us a differentiation of the blame versus the responsibility.
Sure. Let's say that something went wrong technically.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not a technical person, so I could easily say, well, that's not my responsibility.
Right.
But if I see that from a leadership perspective, I go, okay, did I properly have this person equipped to face this challenge?
Right.
Did I put the resources in to give them the right kind of equipment? Because sometimes someone can constantly be failing because you've not given them the resources for success.
Yeah.
Sometimes a person's failing all the time because you haven't placed them in the right role, and they're trying to fulfill a role that they're not really equipped to fulfill. Or you just threw them in there and haven't trained them. So everywhere where you can identify how you could make them more successful, the better of a leader you are.
So I look at okay, I like to blame the person. I'm one of those people because I don't really care if you make the mistake. I care if you're in or not. Because what I found is that if you were bought into the vision and you are a loyal member of a certain team and you care about it, you don't make as many mistakes. It doesn't mean you won't. It doesn't mean you'll be perfect.
Right.
But there'll be functional mistakes. Like, oh, I didn't know that, and now I know that.
You don't make as many careless mistakes when you care.
Right. The thing that bothers me are careless mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that's a reflection of someone's buy-in.
It's also a reflection of the culture.
It's a reflection of the culture.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, like, if someone makes a mistake, but they're like, hey, I'm in this, just what can I do better, and how can I do this better?
Yeah.
There's no issue.
Now, like recently, I was upset with someone because of a small thing, but I felt it was systemic.
Was it me?
No, it wasn't you.
Thank God.
So I sent them
One
a text,
time.
and I walked them through why their apology fell flat to me.
Okay.
I actually used that language. Your apology.
Because they said sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
It falls flat because I'm not convinced that you will establish the patterns to change.
Establishing the patterns to change. Is this the title?
And I told him, I said, I believe in your loyalty and your commitment and who you are as a person. What I need from you is a strategy you're going to implement to break this pattern in your leadership. And it was really good. He sent me a detailed step-by-step, this is why I keep making this mistake, and this is how I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
And then he said, and this was the intangible variable that caused it this time.
Yeah.
And when I saw the intangible variable, I felt really sad. And I thought, if I had known that, I would have given him a lot more grace.
What was the tangible variable?
There's someone who's profoundly sick in their world.
Okay.
And so sometimes it's about communication. I would have been so much more adaptive in that moment if I had known that variable, but they didn't tell me.
So like in a situation, like I don't know I don't know the situation.
No, you
so,
don't.
but
Yeah.
I don't want to get too into it if it's too personal. But like I think there's things people can learn from this because like oftentimes we want to carry the load on our own.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this off air, and you said I carry the burden. It's on me. And I was having a moment of respect, and I decided to save maybe the disrespectful nature for the podcast, because I was like, no, it's not. If you hire well and we're equipped well and we are doing our jobs, the burden should be lighter for you. You know what I mean? But maybe that's just in theory.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. When the more people have a buy-in, the more people are carrying the weight of that burden, and the easier it is for you as a leader. The fewer people have buy-in, the more the weight you carry by yourself.
Right.
And so, no, it's true. The more of a team that you have, people who are as bought in as you are, and the easier it is in a sense to carry.
The burden gets lighter.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But one of the things I really wanted to talk about today was the statement that one of our friends made while we were in New York.
Yeah.
And he'd made it before when I launched my collection in December, and lots of new brand. And, I immediately had some wonderful feedback, and then I had some hate.
Whoa. So much hate.
Yeah.
And so much wonderful feedback.
Yeah.
It felt pretty like evenly divided.
Yeah. And one of the things that I noted that I did not respond to was, and maybe this is a little bit because people don't hear me speak with an accent, they forget, but I am actually a Latino and I'm an immigrant. And I noticed
you immigrated. You were not born in this country.
I was not. No, I became an American citizen
because
10 years ago.
People look at you and they go, "No,
yeah, and
you were born here."
I'm sorry for educating myself. And
wow, that's an interesting statement.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times people diminish who you are as an outsider because they expect you to be a certain prototype of a person, and that's a part of the racism that's out there. But I did notice that pretty much every single person who attacked me starting a luxury men's collection was white.
Oh, here we go.
And I didn't want to say anything at that time until my friend Arturo, who's Mexican, made the statement. And I told him, I said, hey, I noticed a strange thing where I'm getting a lot of hate for creating a high-end men's fashion brand. And he said, oh, no, you don't understand, bro. He said, as a Mexican, when I was creating high-end luxury apparel, I got so much hate saying you're a Mexican. He goes, I even got hate from Mexicans. He goes, they're saying you're leaving us behind, you're letting us down, you're not making it accessible to us.
Charging too much.
You're charging too much. What about us?
That happened in the Uber, huh?
Yeah.
You guys were talking about that in Uber, okay.
But he also had mentioned it last December, just a month ago. And it really struck me, this question, and that's the question I really wanted to almost like talk about a little bit,
Right.
is that cultures are different. And because Mosaic has been so diverse for so many decades, and I've lived in an incredibly diverse world.
Yeah.
And I've talked to, like, a lot of my friends who are Asian will tell me, my family has always driven me to success. I mean, it drove me to become a dentist or a doctor or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And
the leader in whatever field they've chosen.
Yeah. And at the same time, high loyalty to family.
Right.
And one of the things I noticed more in like American, like Caucasian culture is maybe a less commitment to staying close to your family, but more like pursuing your dreams, going after your dreams.
Yeah.
But in the Latin culture, and at least the Latin culture that I've been so aware of for all my life, Latins tend to say stay close to family at the cost of your success,
right,
or even the cost of your dreams. You have to choose family first, and so you stay close to home.
Yeah.
And I think one of the unique things that my mom did was she left El Salvador and came to try to create a new life, a new world for us as kids and everything. And yet I still feel that pressure. Like I always felt that pressure. Wait a minute, is your family, as opposed to maybe your calling, your career, your success, your dreams, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I just wondered how many of us are actually in a culture, without realizing it, that says you need to settle for less so that you can belong. Or are we in a culture that says you need to aspire to be the highest version of yourself, to do the most good, to accomplish, even to be, to achieve your greatest success?
There is such a conflict in calling in the Latin world.
Yeah.
And in so many worlds. Because I'm sure there's so many, in every culture, I think people feel it, right? This loyalty to home, to then also like this loyalty to yourself and what you believe you can achieve and what you can do, and also to fail, like the freedom to fail. And in so many cultures, so many family systems, they don't have the freedom because you got one shot at this to be successful, and you got to do it, and you got to bring the family up, and you got to rise the family up, and you got to create generational wealth. And I've felt this before, where I felt, when I moved to New York, I felt so conflicted. It's like I felt like I was betraying my family, betraying my best friend. My sister, I was leaving her to fend for herself. Like, no, everyone was perfectly fine. Everyone was perfectly fine. Me, like, adventuring and pursuing something and learning something and taking time to do something for me, But then, and I came back, and things were probably less easy when I came back. I made things far more complicated. But I do think, how does one identify the circle that they're in, the culture that they're in, the community that they're in, and honor it and still break free of it, or rise above it? Or are there certain situations that people need to go, like a lot of friends of ours are Kiwis and Australians, New Zealanders and Australians. And they deal with the tall poppy syndrome. But if you like we get a lot of hate, but because maybe we're like a bit on a platform that people people know about our family or church or businesses, and so we get criticized for everything that we launch. It felt like there was a season where just everything that we launched, and we were launching 2 more things this year, and you're gonna criticize us, I'm sure.
But you're gonna also want it.
And you're still gonna want it, and you're gonna sign up for it. But like in Australia, New Zealand, they do that to like the common folk.
Yeah.
Who are you to think you should start a successful business, and why should it be successful? And it's crazy, like an entire society of that.
Yes, and Lawrence Harrison from Harvard University did so much research in economics. And when he wrote "Who Prospers" and "Underdevelopment is the State of the Mind," and talked a lot about how culture has a lot to do with economic development. And and it's funny, I have these cousins, I think there's 4 girls, they're all medical doctors.
Was this the book you had me read?
It's one of them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have 4 cousins, they're all girls, they're all medical doctors. Their parents are an attorney, and they also ran a college. And so the culture of that part of my family, and my family as a whole, was very much you strive to achieve everything you can. You have a stewardship of your intelligence and the resources available to you, and average and mediocrity is not acceptable.
Right.
And yet I think it's interesting. They pretty much all moved from El Salvador at one point and now live in Tennessee. They all moved to a little town outside of Nashville. They all have, I guess, have farms. And so they were able to maintain the sense of Latin family, community, la familia. And yet they all achieved this incredibly high level of competency. And I am convinced their family culture is what allowed that to happen.
Right.
And I wonder, one, if there's a cultural shift that has taken place, certainly in America, where instead of celebrating and applauding people to elevate, we actually almost castigate and demean people who are trying to break barriers. Yeah. Let me give you
Wait, so you didn't answer any of my questions.
Okay, so
how do you identify if you are in a community, whether they're uplifting you or confining you?
If they give excuses for your failure and for your lack of ambition.
So give me an example.
It's okay. You're doing the best you can.
But you would say that to me sometimes.
Yeah, right in between, suck it up.
Yeah, you would.
And get back in the game, right? Because I'm always telling you that God has placed things in you that you have a stewardship for.
Well, I think there was a difference. You would console me in my failures.
Yeah.
And also posture me to go and fail again.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Whereas versus you're saying someone going, it's okay. You're good here. You're good where you are. Mm-hmm. You don't need to do anything else. You tried. You can come back and be safe.
I think actually one of the things you can look at is the mirroring approach and asking yourself, are the 5 closest people to you people who have a drive to make a difference in the world, or are they people who are satisfied and with whatever life quote brings to them?
Right.
You do find an interesting thing. The people you surround yourself with are a reflection of who you not only are, but who you will become. And that's one of the great advantages of, let's say, of a university education. When you go to a university and you're around people who are driven and ambitious and are self-educated in that sense, you start taking on those drives and ambitions. The reason all my cousins could become doctors is once you have one person in your system that achieves something, it becomes expected.
Achievable.
It's achievable.
Right.
And so there are a lot of us, and I'm going to say a lot of us like Latinos who never saw someone break through in a particular area.
Right.
And so it never even occurs to us it can be us. And this really hit me as I remember speaking at these really prestigious events, and I wasn't for one second thinking to myself, wow, I'm the first Latino to ever speak on this platform.
Yeah.
Let's say even like the Leadership Summit, the Global Leadership Summit. I'm pretty sure I'm the first Latino in their history that ever spoke at the summit.
And they probably didn't even know you were Latino.
No, they didn't.
They thought you were Irish.
Yeah, and I would have Latino leaders come up to me, weeping, saying, you don't understand what this means to us. Like, you give us hope that one day we can be on this platform or one day we can have our own platform. And I began to realize that I was breaking a barrier for so many people that felt that barrier was impossible to break.
Right.
And honestly, it's so important. Everything I do, I feel like everything I do needs to be world class, because if I let the ceiling be low, I'm not creating space for people to elevate in their own lives.
And we were having this conversation in New York because we were in Brooklyn, and it was funny because we've only really spent time in the city. And then we stayed in Brooklyn. We were working in Brooklyn, and shout out to storytellers and creators and all the team there. Amazing people. Rarely do you get to sit and cut the pattern or stand and cut the pattern with the guy who's cutting the pattern, Jay, or sit and sew with Natalia and concept and develop concepts with Huli and Jessica and DJ for Animals, The Rocket, and Arturo and the whole team and Raza and these people. Rarely do you get to be in a factory like that. Most of the time, there's this top line from the leaders down where you only speak to the top person because that's where you connect, and you don't actually have any relationship with anyone who's developing the things that you're building. What I like about this space, because we were there working with these amazing people. They're all Latin except for the one guy you didn't get to meet. A couple of the guys you met, and we were in this space. We were having this conversation about we get criticized and compared to the best. Oh, you think you're the best? Oh, you think you're these people? You're not Jerry. You're not Rudy, you're not YSL, you're not Gucci, but
not
you have
Greg,
you have Gucci, you have not Greg. And we're like, well, we didn't put ourselves in those conversations, but now that you're comparing us, I guess we've got a lot to live up to.
That's right. So when I went in to design my next collection, I'm being compared to the very best in the world. So that's what they're going to get.
So that's what they're going to get. So we're buying fabrics, and we were sitting with George and buying fabrics in this incredible space. We're looking through the top suiting fabrics, the most luxurious cashmeres, and we're going to make some stuff from the best in the world. Like you won't even, like, the next stuff is so insane. It leaves, like, I'm proud of what we did, but the next thing is more incredible. And we were talking about this, like, we owe it to our culture, we owe it to our heritage, we owe it to every person who's Latin, every person who is taking a risk to do the absolute best that we can. And if we fail doing it, we're gonna fail doing it at the highest quality. And we're not gonna fail because we're still committed to it. We're committed to this.
And when you look at it as a generational strategy, we're not going to fail because there are going to be so many Latinos and ethnic minorities and outsiders who are going to go, hey, they risked everything to do this and they paid the way for us. Yeah. And I cannot tell you how many times in my life my salary was reduced when they found out I was an immigrant. Yeah. I cannot tell you how many times in my life my job title was being changed because I was over an entire division and they realized, oh, wait a minute, you're not a white person, so you can't be over the white people. You can only be over the Latinos. And then I would have all the Latinos who knew me go, why won't you be the Latino guy? And I'm going,
you weren't Latin enough for the Latinos.
Yeah, but they wanted me to only be for them. And I said, no, this is how the culture holds you back.
Yeah.
If only white people can be over everyone, but Latinos can only be over Latinos, and Asians can only be over Asians, and Black American can only be over the Black leaders. You've actually submitted to this limiting framework. Right. And there is a reason why we've never had a Latin American president or a Latin American vice president. And it's because we've allowed those limiting constructs to define us.
Yeah, because you're only the Latinx representative or the Latino or Latina representative.
That's right. You're not the representative for all people.
Yeah, and I think this is something interesting for us because, like, growing up, culturally, I only resonated with, like, the white side because I didn't understand. Because well, one, we didn't grow up with a lot of relatives around, and everyone was so educated, no one had accents, and so I didn't know. Like, I was only Latin when we went to El Salvador, and I was like, oh shoot. We're really Latin. We're actually Latin. And it shifted things for me when I was young, going to El Salvador, being like, oh, whoa, like, this is not like North Carolina where mom's from.
No.
And this is half of who I am.
And that's why it was so important to me for you to sleep in the very same bed that I slept in when I was.
It was uncomfortable, man. It was uncomfortable.
Like a 50-year-old bed.
Problems.
But interestingly, politically, there are implications.
We're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, but let me just say
this. Statement. This is our last statement.
Because even like the conversations about generational wealth and the taxes that allow or disallow generational wealth. What's funny is that the conversations that end all that, I'm going, wait a minute, you just had 200 years where you were allowed to pass generational wealth, white person to white person to white person.
Right.
And now that we have the first Black millionaires and billionaires
increasing
and the emergence of the first Latin millionaires and billionaires, you're going to change all the laws about the right to pass on generational wealth. I'm going, do we not realize as ethnic minorities that this is not working in our favor because what works in our favor is allowing us to create everything we're capable of creating. And I want the same advantages that
everyone else had.
I'm going to say, not everyone, that white people had 50 years ago. I'm going to say, I want those advantages for my generation and for the generations to come as well.
Well, this is also important. I don't want to get too political, but it's also why it's important that we don't shift to a socialist society, that we stay, that why capitalism is important.
No, it is.
This is why capitalism is important.
I don't want to go there.
Where do you because I think I think political agenda is to get minority communities to become more socialist. But what that ends up happening is that we start voting in the same legislation that limits our cultures that we buy into this, no, we need to equally spread it. It's like, no, you need to go and achieve. You need to go and be successful.
I do not want a society where everyone is equal at the bottom. I want a society where everyone has an equal opportunity to raise the ceiling and rise up.
Yes. And so, with that, which is interesting, talking about people who change rules, all of a sudden, everything that's going on with the stock market is so interesting. We don't know a lot about the stock market. We're not leaders in this conversation.
I wish I could talk about GameStop
to figure it out.
Intelligence.
I'm going to have Eric Roy call me later. But we were in New York, like, deep, like head down working on this stuff. So, and then we were getting like DMs and texts and like blown up. And then like last night on our family chat, the big five with a bunch of like safari animals. I think that's funny. Mariah's like, what the heck is happening with the stocks? Like, what is going on? And then we were like looking it up, and I had the news on last night, just trying to figure it out. It is crazy how Wall Street and the people who like regulate the Robinhood app and Wall Street shifting the rules so the little people can't make some money.
Protecting the rich.
Protecting the rich. It's ironic. Robinhood.
Robin
the Hood. Robin the Hood.
Yeah. And boy, I want to see the dismantling of that. See, I think we have to find a way to allow everyone to create wealth and not to protect the people who already have it only. And that's dynamic. And to me, that's the point of this podcast. Make sure you're surrounded by a culture, by people who challenge you to be the best version of yourself, that don't allow you to feel complacent and settled with and comfortable with just existing.
And achieve.
Yeah.
Because no, you have something else. We're gonna end this in 2.5 minutes because we said it's gonna be bite-sized. No,
you're the one that went on.
No, I know, because now we're like firing. I'm fine if we keep going, but I do think this is something that's really because we've been talking about like minority and our culture being Latin. But what I do love about the society now is like Barack Obama was a huge hero of mine. Like your heroes don't have to be like strictly your culture and your race and your heritage.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, I do love that we live in a society where you can have heroes that are different than what you look like.
Yeah.
And I think having a black president opened it up for the Latin community, going like, hey, he did it. We can do it. You know what I mean? Like
every time the glass ceiling is broken, it's important.
Every time you break a pattern, it shifts for all cultures. You got to tell your story.
Yeah, and for me, that doesn't even matter if it's to the right or left. Every time our culture breaks through, it's a good thing.
Every time.
But I'm going to say this just straight out. I refuse to be a part of any conversation that demands me to be less. And you can say whatever you want, but I'm going to surround myself with people who have bigger dreams than me, who have greater ambitions than me. I want to keep putting myself in the room where I'm the least and successful, effective, insightful. I want to keep elevating who I am. And if the best way to feel big is to stay in a small room.
Oof.
And
no, just let it. The best way to feel big is to stay in a small room.
I want to keep entering into a room where I feel small until I learn how to get bigger and bigger and bigger in that room.
Sometimes I just want like a little life vest though. Like, take me back to the small room. I'm gonna pop that thing.
Well, so we're going to call this one, get in the big room. But get in the big boy's room.
I want to say this really quick though, because I don't want to leave white people out of this conversation, because I think white people feel like they get left out of the conversation. It's like bad to be white now. Mom broke her pattern. Mom broke a pattern, and she's as white as a ghost.
And that's right. That little Irish girl came out of poverty, lived in the government projects, left starving,
abandoned as a kid,
lived as a foster child for 10 years. Yes.
Came from nothing, walked herself across to a church, gave her life to Jesus, decided she was going to go get a full ride at a university, went to a university, got a master's degree. One of the smartest people I know.
Yes, and it's so unfair. And I want to say that when we start using just the color of our skin to dictate the stories that are our lives.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this to everyone. I don't care if you're black or Latino or Asian or Caucasian or whatever you may be. What I'm saying to you is there is more in you than you know. Surround yourself with people who challenge you and call you to greatness. Don't settle for less. and don't let those who need you to be less so that they can be less to establish or define who you are.
And with that, we are going to wrap this episode up. That was incredible, incredibly poignant.
All right.
Okay.
Ready for the battle. Battle ready.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. We are really appreciative for you, and we are so grateful. Thank you for supporting. You can support this podcast on Anchor. It supports this podcast. You can give 99 cents. You can give $4.99. You can give 99 and $9.99. You can give 999.99 too if you want. We don't have a system for that. We are launching something soon. People have been asking how can they support this podcast more. We are launching something soon. Content. More content. So much stuff. So stay listening. Get ready. You can rate this podcast. Go rate this podcast. If you haven't, do it. I want 1 million rates on this podcast. 5 stars. Be the people. People who are negative talk louder than people who are positive. Get loud, positive people. Get up, get loud. Let's go. Next episode coming soon. We're dropping this one today. Goodbye.